Hello and welcome, and thank you for coming to our orientation. My name is Trisha Reinhardt. I'm the Information Services Director over here at the library. That's basically a fancy title for a research librarian. I do a lot of consultations with students who need research help, also APA help, anything like that. So we're glad you're here today.
And my name's Jane Peck. I'm the director of the Regis College Library. I'm an alum. I went there many, many moons ago. But it's fun to be back on campus. And I also meet with students and do consultations, and I am a little bit of the gatekeeper at the end of this process where I look at your final SPP to make sure it's ready for publication. So once you get to that point, we have a lot of things to help you with that, and information about copyrights and permissions and formatting and all of that. And then I give it a last once over to make sure there's no encryption errors or um, alphabetizing errors in your references or things like that stick out to me, and I'll send it to you for a little bit of a review and an edit. So I get to see the beginning, and then I get to see the end, which is exciting. We just had graduation. It was fabulous. It was so fun to see students we've worked with um, meet their goals and become doctors or get their masters. So we'll cover as much as we can, and I'm going to share my screen and take you over to the library webpage. So here is our magical webpage that we spend so much of our time on. And when you're in Moodle, there's Regis College Library link right at the top there. You click on Regis College and it'll drop down, and there's a link right to the library. You can also get to it through Sharp, although the webpage that you get to looks a little different, and it offers you a choice of databases or whatever. The Power Search box is something that I'll show you how to use with Google Scholar. Undergrads use it a lot. It gives you all of the resources. It doesn't narrow it down as much, and it doesn't offer you as many opportunities to focus your search. It also will include everything about a topic. So you'll get book reviews and opinion pieces. So it's not the best place to start. The databases is definitely the best place to start, and we'll do a sample search. I'll go over the other buttons so that you know what they are. This books button is for our catalog that links us to the Minuteman Library Network, which is a Boston consortium of libraries. So most out-of-state students don't use it because it's not very helpful. But if you're in state, you can ask for, and you can get to the college, you can request books through that and return Minuteman books to us that way. We also have research guides, which we'll go over, including our kind of world famous, maybe, certainly very, very well used APA citation guide that Trisha adds to on a regular basis and has been used over 200,000 times last year. It was visited. So, I think Regis students are using it a lot, but so are other people. Journal titles. So you're in your classroom and your professor says, the Journal of Adolescent Health is a great journal to look at. You want to look and see what that has. You would click right in here. And then you wait. And then you can enter the title of the journal. You can look in a subject area, and you'll get right to the journals, okay, that we have access to. So that's a nice thing to know about. And then we have RefWorks, which Trisha is going to go over, which is a citation management system, but it offers a lot of other things as well. And it's free to Regis students and faculty. And it's got some really great options. And then the Contact Us button, which is where you can go to find our email to reach out to us, how to make an appointment with us, and all of those things are right there on Contact Us. The other interesting piece on this page is our library hours are right here, and it tells you when we're open, what we have for research help hours, which are slightly different than the hours we're open. But we check our emails regularly and we get back to people very quickly. So databases, this is where we're going to start. And we have the A to Z databases. We have 94 databases to look at, and that's a lot. So we're going to narrow that search down today. I want to make sure that everyone knows that we have access to UpToDate, and you have access to UpToDate as well. It's in the use, and you can go right in there. And in order to use it, you have to be logged in using your Regis credentials and go through our databases. And it's right here. Okay, so feel free to make use of that. One of our most popular databases and one of the best to start with is our Academic Search Complete. So we're going to start with Academic Search Complete today, and then I'm going to show you how to add more databases to the list. So it will tell you that we are using Academic Search Complete. So at the top, it will always tell you what databases it's searching. EBSCOhost is the host of all of these databases. Okay, so it's not its own database, it's a host for all of these individual databases. And we want to add some more. Okay, so we've got CINAHL Ultimate, we have ebook collections, we have HealthSource, Medline Ultimate, APA PsycInfo, Social Sciences Full Text, and Education Source, as well as these others. Sports Discus. If you're doing anything with students or athletes, older athletes, you might want to check that out, especially if you were doing something along the lines of what happens after physical therapy, and then you could look for articles there. Education Source has got lots of things for anything to do with youth in the school setting. So school nurses and school issues with young adults or elementary school children. So Education Source is a great one. ERIC is the government database. It's similar to PubMed, which will be searched when you search CINAHL Ultimate and Academic Search Complete. It's a little bit antiquated to use, so you do need to be patient with it, but it does bring up some good results. So we'll check a few of these just to give you a selection. HealthSource, and we'll do social science, education. And then for any psychological or psychiatric questions, APA PsycInfo has lots to offer. So if you were doing the effects on senior citizens of pet therapy, you would want to include that in there to make sure that you get a broad spectrum. Now, these are all chosen by the library to meet your academic needs. So they are very much peer reviewed. So we get back here and you can see that we're still searching Academic Search Complete. We can show all the databases that we just chose. So there they all are. Okay, so you can know what you're searching. So let's do nurse. And once you start typing in the box, it adds options. So we're going to look at something a little broader. We'll use nurse, nursing staff, or nurses, and we'll do leadership. Okay. And then we're just going to click search. This is a very basic search, and you would put your own search terms in here. Okay. And you have 64,000 results. So you got a lot of reading to do, right? And if you've used Google Scholar, you know that the results in Google Scholar are even more frightening. you can end up with 1.2 million results or 5 million results. And it's like, good gravy, give me a break here. So what we want to do is make sure that we understand how to limit. And over here on the left-hand side where it says refine results, that's where we're going to say scholarly and peer-reviewed. And that dumped out about 10,000. And then we don't really want to go back to 1903. Your professors are going to tell you last 5 years is more than enough. Okay, so you can just grab the bar and bring it right up to 2018 or so, or you can type in the box. And now we're only down to 21,800 articles to read, right? So a couple of other things to know that you can limit. If you are working on a discussion board post and it has to be done in 3 days, and you don't have time to wait for an article to come from Interlibrary Loan, you want to say full text. You just click this box and it takes out the articles that you would need to request from Interlibrary Loan. Please be aware, Interlibrary Loan is free to our students. A lot of times when you search on Google Scholar, you'll find an article and it will ask you to pay $49.99 or whatever for it. So the trick to that is when you see that, copy and paste that title of the article right into the power search box on the first page of the library web version, type it in there, click on search, it will come up to you and it will say that you can borrow it from Interlibrary Loan. There's a link that looks like this right down here, request from Interlibrary Loan. And this is also available full text, so you want to make sure you choose that if it's available. But if you click on the request from Interlibrary Loan, the first time it will ask you to create an account using your Regis Moodle username and password, and then it will remember you. You only have to do that once and it will auto-populate it going forward, and it auto-populates the citation. So then you go to the next page, you say you agree to the copyright restrictions, which are that you sell it or, share it to the world. And then the request goes out to us and our staff takes care of it and we get it from out in the world for free for you. And you'll get an email with a link and a password. And you want to make sure that you use that right away because the links will expire. I think you have 30 days, but it's so easy to get lost and you'll be sad because, and we'll speak to you if you do that because while there's no cost to you, there is a cost to the library at some point when a certain threshold is met. So we don't want to say no to anybody. So be thoughtful when you use Interlibrary Loan, and also be quick to download the article. We say 2 to 3 business days. Most days, if you put it in the morning, someone will look at it that day and go out to ask for it. And then
Okay.
we have to ask for it and then it has to be sent.
Okay.
So if it's really rare, it can take more than a few days, but it's usually 1 to 2 days and it will be
Okay.
in the box.
Thank you.
Sure. Sometimes we'll come back to you and say, it's a book and they won't send a book. Is there a chapter you'd like? Maybe we can get a chapter for you. Sometimes we'll find that it's in a language, a foreign language, and we'll be in touch to say, do you read, Italian or whatever? Not everything is Google translated in the journals out there. So don't be afraid to use Interlibrary Loan, but just be aware that you need to make sure that you download it and save that article. Your article won't expire once you download it. You'll have it to use for your paper. It's just that if you don't use it within that 30-day window, you'll lose access. Okay. So we have all of these articles. And so we could go back up here and we could add some more search terms. So let's say we want leadership and management style. Here it is. I love this because it spells so much better than me. And so you just run the search again and say search. And now we're down to 657, which is like, oh, that's not so bad. It still has all of these limiters on it. So you want to make sure that you realize that it is still limiting them. Sometimes you can go along and you will find that your search history, you've done a whole bunch of searching. You had some great results in the sort of the middle part of your searching and you can't remember what your search terms were. You just click on this box, search history, and it will give you all of your search results right there. Okay, so you can go back and you can look at the search terms you used, your modifiers, you can see your results, and you can click right into the results that you found a better search on. Okay, if you are interested, you can sign in to EBSCO, to the EBSCO host. They'll ask you to do a sign-in process. And that way you can actually save your search histories, you can save searches, and you can create alerts. Make sure you write down your sign-in information because they make you have a password that's like CIA level difficulty. It's like 17 different characters and X number of numbers. It's very much overkill. So definitely sign in, and then whenever you do search, you sign in to start with, and you will be able to look at your search history. You can save articles to your folders. Tricia will also show you about how to use RefWorks, which is another way to save your searches. Okay. So when you have the search history up, it just pushes your results to the bottom of your search history. So if you have a long search history, it can look like all your search results have gone, but they're not. They're just at the bottom of the page, at the bottom of the search history. And when you get tired of looking at all that, you just click the caret and it goes away. Okay. So I want to show you what you can do with the articles once you have them. Say this is the article you think would be great, and you look down here and, oh, PDF full text. So you click on that. And it opens right up. And where the refined results were on the left-hand side of the page for the list that gets generated. Once you open the article, the refinements and options are on the right-hand side. And you can save it to Google Drive. You can save it to OneDrive. You can print it. Lots of people like to print them, write and mark them up. You can drop it into your folders if you've signed in and created a set of folders. You can get a citation. So when you click on this little gold piece of paper, it offers you 95 different kinds of citation styles, and we're all using APA 7th edition, which is right here. And you can copy and paste this. Okay, so it saves you a step. Usually, you have to adjust these. So I'm looking at this, and John Wiley and Sons Incorporated does not need to be in this citation, and so you would want to delete it. But it does have everything else in the correct format, right? So the article title is in sentence case. The journal title is italicized and capitalized, and it has the DOI. Don't skip the DOI. If you can find a DOI, APA wants you to use it, and ProQuest, where you'll be publishing, wants you to use it. So you can copy and paste this. You can email it to yourself. You can do lots of different things with it. You can also export this whole business out to RefWorks, which Tricia is going to show you in a little bit. And it's already ready to directly export to RefWorks. Okay. The other thing to be aware of is that in the address bar, this address is a temporary address. Because people search millions of articles every day on the EBSCO databases, they just assign a temporary article. If you are keeping this article, you can, as I said, email it to yourself, you can also create a permalink to this article. And you click on the little chain links and the permalink box comes up and you can copy and paste that. I recommend doing this on a regular basis, especially with articles that you really want to use and you know you're going to keep. You can copy and paste it into a Word document that you keep with your files so that you can always get back to it. Things happen. Thunderstorms happen, right? Power interruptions happen. So I highly recommend not only keeping your files on your laptop, but also downloading them regularly to a thumb drive. So that if something happened to your laptop, God forbid, you're able to recover your work with your thumb drive. Even and also save it to OneDrive. So you've got kind of a belt and suspenders security blanket for yourself if there are issues with the laptop or the computer you're using. Okay. Any questions about that?
Jean, do you
Yeah.
want to, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Do you want to talk a little bit about, since we have empirical research, quantitative, do you want to talk a little bit about the different types of peer-reviewed articles and what does empirical mean versus a review?
Sure. So empirical means that it's the real deal. It's the original research. When you are looking at reviews and analyses, so systematic analysis or meta-analyses or any of those options, you're looking at a review of original research. So those can be, when you see a systematic analysis, those can be really helpful for your research. If it's on your topic, definitely have a look at it and dive through into the references and backtrack. You'll find excellent references. You'll find, you might find the tool you need that will be hidden in there. If someone's done some research similar to what you're planning to do, you'll be able to use that and sort of reverse engineer to find a tool and the contacts for that. So you want to make sure that you know what you're looking at, especially when you're doing your literature reviews or your literature matrix. I mean, most of those will not accept systematic reviews or meta-analyses. They're not interested in that. That is somebody looking at other people's work. You want to be looking at the empirical research, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, and making sure that what you're looking at and sending to your professors is what they're looking for. The other area that is looked at is levels of evidence. And so your professor will probably share a matrix with that and how they grade what the levels of evidence are. Different programs have different levels of evidence. So you want to make sure you're familiar with that and then apply that to the articles. And then the other thing I was going to do was a quick look at Google Scholar to make sure everybody's got Regis College Library showing on their results. So Google Scholar is very helpful, and a large number of the articles are peer-reviewed, but they are not as serious about who they allow to post on Google Scholar. They are not as rigorous in their peer review as the databases that are available through Regis, the CINAHL Medline. Google's a little bit loosey-goosey as far as that goes, and if it's published and they claim to be peer-reviewed, then you might find that in here listed as being part of the scholarly work. Nurses and leadership. So we'll just do, again, a simple search. And 700,000 results. So we can do a custom date range, which is very handy. And you just type in the box 19. and that dropped us down to about 17,000. But everyone, do people have where it says that it's available at Regis College on the side there? Let me see if I can find an example. Let me go a little deeper here. No, we don't have anything.
You might have to re-add the link, which is a good teaching moment.
Do you think so? Okay, we'll try that. So to add the link to Regis College, we click on the three bars up at the top in Google Scholar, and we ignore My Library and go down to Settings. And then we go to Library Links. And you're right. Who took my Regis College Library off here?
If you've cleared your cache recently, it may have cleared that link.
Yeah, probably. So you just type it in the box. Thank goodness Trisha's here to be in charge of us, or me, as the case may be. You can't find me?
The library is missing an R.
Oh. All righty, here we go. Let's try again. There we go. And I want to click in that box and say save. And now we have Find at Regis College. Thank you, Trisha. I'd been stomping my foot and swearing here. No, not me. So this link will take you right to the article in our Regis databases, which is really handy. And you want to make sure that that's turned on. But if there is an article that is not here, you can copy and paste the title. We'll try this one. Back over here into Power Search. And here's the article with the request from Interlibrary Loan right there. Okay. And that you'd click on that. It already knows me, so it's gonna just ask me to agree to the conditions about copyright, which are very straightforward, and you submit. Okay. So I will let Trisha take over, and I'll stop my share. All right.
Yeah, before we shift gears, does anyone have any questions about anything Jane covered? Yes, you can unmute, put in the chat, whatever works for you.
We don't have a hard and fast number. If you're asking for 20 different interlibrary loan articles, I'll probably reach out to say, maybe we need to help you sort it out a little bit. We have a lot of information in our research guides about how to read scholarly articles so that you are using your time efficiently. It kind of comes down to, you're going to read the title, which sounds ridiculous, but lots of us sort of skim it. Oh, this looks like it might be. I actually read it out loud to myself to like get the gist of what it is. And then you want to assess who's written it. What are the letters after their names? Who are these people? And then read the abstract for starters. And that abstract will give you a lot of information about whether or not it's going to be an article that is going to be useful to you. And then have a little look at their references. They might have some good references on that page. And you don't have to read the entire article. You can skip the methods part unless you're looking for a tool. And then you would kind of skim the methods part and see what tool they used. And then you can, if you're really interested, read your discussions and conclusions. And at that point, you know enough that you want to borrow it. And you, now with something that's an interlibrary loan, you're going to get the abstract. So you'll be doing the title, the people who wrote it, and the abstract to decide. But people borrow over the course of their career with us many, many interlibrary loan articles. The only thing we would be if we notice that you're sort of all over the place and you don't really understand quite how to form your search. And then we'll go back and say, well, did you try this? And how about in this Regis database? Let's look there and help you find it that way. So don't be afraid to use interlibrary loan. Just don't go crazy. And it's there, it's there, it's there. There's a list of 20, and you're going to ask for them all. And then you'll probably get an email from me saying, well, let's think about this. And 20 articles is a lot of reading. Every, peer-reviewed article is usually 10 or more pages. Mostly they're 20 pages. So you multiply that by 20 articles and you are drowning. So you don't want to do that to yourself. Okay, sure.
All right, I will shift gears here and share my screen. And I'll talk a little bit about RefWorks that we have and also the research guides that we have available. But I'll start with RefWorks because that's the most exciting, I think. So RefWorks is, if you've never heard of it, it is a citation management tool. So you can put your citations into it and it can generate a bibliography for you. But we have found in recent months it actually does quite a bit more than that. It can also help you to organize your research as well. So this button takes you to the RefWorks guide that we have. It talks about all of the different things it can do and different features. So feel free to check this out after here to get a more in-depth look into it. I'm just going to show you the basic functionality and a couple of the cool tools that it has. So you can get into it through RefWorks here. There's also a link to it in our A to Z database list that we started off with Jane with all those A to Z databases. You can get to it through there as well. And so now it's gonna auto log me in because it knows me, but I'm gonna log out so that I can show you. So if it's your first time, you're gonna create an account here. And make sure you use your Regis email because it is a Regis subscription. So you need to be a Regis person to use it. And then you hit check and then you go through the registration process and can start using it. And it when you first log in, it will just ask you some identifying information like what program you're in and what your status is, those sorts of things. But then you can, whoops, I didn't mean to X out of it. That's okay. I can get right back in. So I'll log into mine so you can see what it looks like. And if you've used other citation management tools like Zotero, EndNote, Mendeley, any of those, they all basically do the same thing. I like RefWorks because it's very basic but user friendly. It just does what it's supposed to do in a very easy to understand way. It doesn't really have a whole lot of bells and whistles, but it does what it's supposed to do. So these are just some random references I have in here from working with students and showing them RefWorks. But to get the references in here, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can go up here to add, and you can create a reference manually. So that brings up the manual entry form here, and you would just choose the reference type. Most likely it'll be a journal article. Then you fill out all of the citation information here. The easiest way is to export it from the databases because as you are searching, or you can search for the articles you already have rather than typing in all of this or copy and pasting in all the information, you can just export it. So I'm going to use Power Search here, which is searches most of the databases that we have available. So it's going to search CINAHL, Medline, Academic Search Complete, all of those, but it's the same searching experience. It's an EBSCOhost database. So I'm just going to put in very similar search, nursing leadership, to get it going. And chances are you've probably used this when you've done your searching because it's the first thing you see when you get on the library page. So I'm going to do styles or traits or attributes is another good one here. So I'm breaking up my concepts into these different boxes here. I'm using and to narrow down my search and or to broaden it up a little bit. So you can put similar or like terms in the same box here with or in between. So I'll click on that, and you already know about the limiters over here. Again, like I said, a very similar searching experience. So let's find a good one here. Here's a nice systematic review. So let's click on this. So over here where the tools are for printing, emailing, citing, you can export as Jane showed you. So when I click on that, it auto chooses RefWorks because that's the product we use here. And when I hit save, it's going to pull me in through. It might ask you to log in again, depending on where you're coming from. But usually it's a pretty seamless process. So it's going to import it into a kind of this generic not in folder, but you can create other folders and add them in to your specific folders. And so now it's importing it. Go to last imported, and here it is here. And actually I'm seeing a weird thing right now, this invalid date. Wonder what's going on with that. You can edit these. So when you click on it, you can edit, and then you can put in, oh yeah, there's something funky that came in here. So you can edit this. And the same thing, if something comes over without a DOI number, you can go in and edit it and add the DOI number in there. So this one already has one. Just to make sure when you do that generating, it will do it properly. And so now it's fixed it here. I'm not sure why it came over like that, but here we are. And that's how you edit a record and make it so that it shows how you need it and want it to show. So here's our citation here. As I mentioned, you can do specific folders. I find these folders at this stage in the citing and organizing. The folders are good for if you have different classes or completely different projects that you're working on. Because for the most part, you'll probably be using this for, especially for the DMP students, for your one big project. So you want them all in one folder. But you can organize your citations into different projects and different classes. Something you can do while you're editing the record is the tags, excuse me, the tags feature, which some of these already have tags here. These came over from the databases. And so the tags, this one didn't come over with any, but that's okay because I can add my own. So, when you start organizing your research, you can tag it by concept, by topic, by level of evidence as well. And that way, when you, leadership styles, or level 1. This will probably make more sense for the DMP students. This will probably make more sense later on in the program, this level and topics. But so now I've added those tags in there. Now I can search for the tags, and oops, might help if I. So leadership styles, although it's saying it's not matching, maybe I need to get out of here. Did it not save it? Oh, you know what? I don't think I hit save. That would help. And level 1. Okay, learn from my fail here. Make sure you save it before you X out. There we go. And here's my leadership styles that I just put in, although RoughWorks always acts up when I am in here. But you can click on the tag and it will bring you to all, I mean, I only have the one here, but it will bring you to all the articles that you have tagged under that particular concept. Again, with the levels, these are all my level 1 articles that I have added in. So that is one way to organize your research as well as export from the databases. Now, if I wanted to create my bibliography, I can go up here to create bibliography. Just make sure you're in the folder that you, like this not in folder, make sure you're in the folder you want to generate your references list from. Go to create bibliography, and just make sure that you have the APA 7th Regis College Library template because this will ensure that it is formatted properly. So if it doesn't automatically show up for you as the default, you can find it under institutional styles here. And then it generates the references list for you. So you can copy this and paste it into the end of your paper. Now, like any citation management tool or citation generator, these are not 100% all the time. RoughWorks does a pretty good job, honestly, but you will still want to look through and make sure that everything is correct. Sometimes what I've seen is, and I'm not seeing one here, is there'll be like no period here at the end of the page numbers, and then you'll just see the DOI number, so you got to put the period and the space in there. But that's easy enough to do. This gets you most of the way there. So feel free to use RoughWorks for one project, for all your classes, whatever works for you. It's easy to use. The other thing I wanted to show you, switching gears again, is our research guides because we have 5 minutes here. Got to get everything in. So our research guides are kind of one-stop point of reference resources that you can use. They're organized by subject here, but if you know a particular guide that you want to get into, like the APA guide, for instance, you can go to all guides. So our APA guide is up to 88,000 views right now. We suspect this is used beyond Regis with that many views. We have a lot of students here, but I think we somehow got on the search engine optimization in Google, and there's other places that are using it, which is fine, which is great. But it's organized by topic here, like formatting, and our most popular is our reference examples here. So you can see an example of how to cite a journal article. So for instance, you've just generated that citation and you want to double check and make sure everything is formatted correctly. You can go here and compare and contrast, oh, that title isn't in sentence case. I'll need to change that because it doesn't look like this. Those sorts of things. So a couple of our other more popular guides, if, for instance, we go to social work, these are some of the best guides for the social work department, but some of these are they're also in the nursing subject as well. Like peer-reviewed literature, we just talked about what is peer-reviewed literature, types of articles that my professor is looking for, annotated bibliography, chances are you've done one or you have to do one. So this goes over um, the what is an annotated bibliography and some additional sources there. Um, so feel free to go to your particular subject and look through these guides and see what, like we have a concepts of nursing leadership for those in your first semester here. Um, just to get you started, a point of reference. And of course, if you have any questions about anything or you need to sit down with the librarian, um, and go over your research, I went in, this all made sense, but then I went in and tried to search my project and I got nothing. I need some additional help. You can go to the contact us here and we have our research help hours and any for instance, this Monday we're closed for the holiday, so there'll be any kind of announcements, changes to our hours there. You can fill out this research consultation request form, and that just lets us know who you are, what program you're in, when you're available, and also what you're working on as well. That helps us to prepare to help you. And then you can also email us. We're just at reference at excuse me, reference at regiscollege.edu with any quick questions you might have. Did I cite this properly? What's the best database to go for this? Anything that doesn't involve a back and forth conversation, feel free to email us for. So that is library resources in a nutshell. I will stop sharing here and see if we have any other questions in the last minute or so we have left.
So that's 88,000 this year since January 1st.
Yes. Yes.
I want everybody to go there a lot so that we'll get. All right, well, we love to see our students, so don't hesitate, reach out, and we're happy to help you be successful. That's our goal.